The file arrived without a sender. It was a gray morning in Quantico, the kind of morning when the sky pressed low against the buildings and everything felt heavier than it should. Special Agent Daniel Mercer was halfway through his second cup of coffee when the envelope appeared on his desk. No courier, no routing slip, no digital log, just a thick manila envelope placed neatly at the center, as if it had always been there. He stared at it for a long time before touching it. In the FBI, nothing appears without a trail. He flipped it over. No return address, no case number, only one line typed in faded black ink, case review required, archival mater. Mercer frowned. He had spent 12 years in the Bureau, most of them reviewing cold cases that no one else wanted. Missing persons, unsolved homicides, dead ends buried under decades of paperwork. But even cold cases had histories, records, chains of custody. This one had nothing. Inside the envelope was a thin file folder and a small plastic evidence sleeve. The sleeve contained a cassette tape, not a CD, not a digital drive, a cassette. Mercer turned it over slowly. The label was handwritten. Confession, May 17, no name, no case number, just a time written beneath it. Recorded, 2014 a.m. He opened the folder next. The first page was a standard FBI case summary, or at least it looked like one. The formatting was correct. The letterhead was authentic. The signatures appeared legitimate. The problem was the case itself. It didn't exist. The file described a suspect named Michael Reeves, age 38, occupation, construction supervisor. Residence, Cedar Ridge, West Virginia. According to the report, Reeves had walked into a local police station late at night and confessed to multiple murders spanning nearly a decade. 4 confirmed victims. Possibly more. He insisted the confession be recorded. He insisted federal authorities be notified. And then, according to the document, he disappeared. No arrest record, no court file, no missing person report, nothing. Mercer leaned back slowly. If this case were real, it should have generated hundreds of documents, warrants, evidence logs, interrogation transcripts, crime scene reports. Instead, the folder contained only 3 items: a summary report, a transcript labeled audio reconstruction, and a note. The note was typed on plain paper. Original recording archived under restricted authority. Do not duplicate. Below that, handwritten in blue ink, the tape should not exist. Mercer felt a chill move slowly down his spine. Pitum! By noon, he had accessed the Bureau's central database. No record of Michael Reeves. No record of the Cedar Ridge confession. No federal case tied to May 17 of any year. He tried local law enforcement databases. Nothing. He tried missing persons. Nothing. It was as if the man had never lived. But the transcript in front of him was detailed, specific, too specific to be fabricated casually. It began with a timestamp, 02-14007. Then a voice. Interviewer. State your name for the record. Subject. Michael Reeves. The transcript described his voice as calm, controlled, almost relieved. Mercer kept reading. Reeves confessed to killing 4 people. He gave names, addresses, dates, and locations where the bodies could be found. If even one of those details checked out, the case was real. Mercer called the Cedar Ridge Sheriff's Office. The deputy who answered sounded confused. Michael Reeves? The deputy repeated. No, sir. No one by that name here. Mercer read the first victim's name. There was silence. Then the deputy said quietly, "Hold on." The line went silent for nearly a minute. When the deputy returned, his voice had changed. That missing person case, it's real. Mercer sat up. The victim, a woman named Laura Bennett, had disappeared 9 years earlier. No suspects, no body. The transcript said Reeves buried her behind an abandoned warehouse outside town. The deputy checked the old case notes. That location had never been searched. Mercer's pulse quickened. If the tape was real, it contained information that could solve cold cases. But that raised a more disturbing question. Why had it been hidden? 2 days later, Mercer stood behind yellow tape near the abandoned warehouse. Local officers had dug exactly where the transcript indicated. They found human remains. The medical examiner confirmed the identity through dental records. Laura Bennett, missing for 9 years. Mercer felt the weight of the case settle around him. The confession was real, which meant someone had recorded it, which meant someone had buried it, and someone inside the system had erased the case. Back at Quantico, Mercer requested access to the original recording. The response came back within an hour. Request denied. Material restricted. He requested the authorizing authority. The system returned a single classification tag, internal security. Level Black. Mercer had never seen that designation before. He walked the request up the chain of command. His supervisor read the file slowly, then closed it. "You didn't find this," she said. "It was on my desk." She looked at him for a long moment, then put it back wherever it came from. "That tape led us to a body. That doesn't change the directive." Mercer leaned forward. "4 victims. Maybe more. Someone confessed, and someone buried the evidence." His supervisor lowered her voice. "Some files disappear for a reason, Mercer." That night, alone in the evidence room, Mercer finally did what he wasn't supposed to do. He played the tape. The audio quality was rough, old. A low mechanical hiss filled the background. Then a voice, a man breathing slowly. Then the interviewer again. "Why did you come in tonight, Michael?" A long pause. Then Reeves spoke. "Because it's starting again." Mercer frowned. The interviewer asked, "What's starting again?" Another pause. Then Reeves said something that made Mercer's hands go still. "I stopped 9 years ago, but the dreams came back, and when the dreams come back, people disappear." The tape continued. Reeves described each murder in detail, locations, methods, dates, but halfway through the recording, something changed. His tone shifted. He stopped answering questions directly. He began speaking as if he were remembering something that hadn't happened yet. At 02:46 a.m., Reeves said, "There will be another one tomorrow." The interviewer responded immediately. "What do you mean tomorrow?" Reeves answered calmly. "A man named Thomas Hale, parking garage, 3rd level." Mercer froze. He checked the transcript. There was a note beside that line. "Incident confirmed. May 18. Thomas Hale had been reported missing the day after the confession. His body was found 3 days later, exactly where Reeves described." But according to the file timeline, Reeves had disappeared the same night he gave the confession. Mercer rewound the tape, listened again. At 03:02 a.m., Reeves said something else. His voice dropped almost to a whisper. "They think this is a confession." A pause. "It's not." The interviewer asked. "Then what is it?" Reeves answered. "It's a warning." The tape ended abruptly 6 minutes later. No closing statement. No arrest. No transfer. No documentation. Just silence. Mercer sat alone in the evidence room long after the recorder stopped spinning. If Reeves disappeared that night, he couldn't have committed the murder he predicted, unless Mercer opened the file again. There was one last page he hadn't noticed before. A supplemental note added years later, typed in a different format. No signature. Just one line. Subject never located. Activity did not cease. Mercer felt the air in the room grow cold. If that line was true, then Reeves hadn't been confessing to past crimes. He had been describing future ones, and someone inside the FBI had buried the tape anyway. At 11:47 p.m., Mercer's office phone rang. He almost didn't answer. No one called that late unless something was wrong. He picked up. Silence. Then a man's voice, calm, controlled, familiar. "Agent Mercer," the voice said. "You shouldn't be listening to that tape." Mercer's grip tightened. "Who is this?" A pause. Then the voice said quietly, "You're about to hear the part they removed." The line went dead. On Mercer's desk, the cassette recorder, which he had unplugged, clicked on by itself. The reels began to spin, and a voice he recognized began speaking again. Michael Reeves. The tape was not supposed to play. Agent Daniel Mercer stared at the recorder as the reels turned slowly on their own, the soft mechanical whir filling the silence of his office. He had unplugged the device himself. He had removed the batteries. Yet the machine was running. For a moment, he didn't move. Then the voice came back. Michael Reeves. But this wasn't the same tone from earlier in the recording. Before, Reeves had sounded calm, controlled, almost relieved. Now his breathing was uneven. There was strain in his voice, fear or something close to it. A new timestamp crackled through the speaker. 03-1842. This section hadn't been in the transcript. The interviewer's voice sounded sharper now, more urgent. "Michael, earlier you said this isn't a confession. You said it's a warning. I need you to explain that." There was a long pause. Then Reeves spoke quietly. "Because the order is wrong." Mercer leaned closer. The interviewer asked, "What order?" Reeves inhaled slowly. The timeline, the room seemed to shrink around Mercer. Reeves continued, "I remember things before they happen. At first it was dreams, faces I didn't know, places I'd never been. Then the news would show them, missing, dead." The interviewer tried to interrupt. "Are you saying you're predicting crimes?" "No," Reeves said. Another pause. "I'm remembering them." The tape hissed. Mercer felt a cold pressure building behind his eyes. The interviewer asked carefully, "Remembering your own actions?" "No," Reeves replied. Then, after a long silence, "Remembering someone else's." The tape shifted. Papers rustled. A chair moved. The interviewer's voice dropped. "Michael, are you working with someone?" Reeves didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice was barely above a whisper. "I thought I was alone. For years I thought it was just me losing control, that I was the one doing it. A breath. But the dreams kept changing." Another pause. "They started showing me places I'd never been, cities I've never visited, people I've never met." The interviewer asked, "Then how do you know the details are real?" Reeves answered, "Because they keep coming true." Mercer grabbed a notebook and began writing. If this section had been removed from the official transcript, it was removed deliberately. The interviewer's tone changed again, more clinical now. "Michael, when did this start?" 10 years ago, Reeves said, "after the accident." "What accident?" Silence. Then Reeves spoke slowly. "I was working a night shift. Construction site outside town. We were pouring foundation. There was a collapse." His breathing grew heavier. "They said one man didn't make it out." The interviewer asked, "What was his name?" Reeves answered immediately, "Thomas Hale." Mercer's pen stopped. Thomas Hale was the victim Reeves had predicted earlier, the man who disappeared the day after the confession. But according to records, Hale had died years later. The timeline didn't match. On the tape, the interviewer sounded confused too. "Michael, Thomas Hale died this year." "No," Reeves said. His voice was firm. "He died 10 years ago. I was there." The tape clicked briefly, as if someone had adjusted the recorder. Then the interviewer spoke again, more tense now. "Michael, are you saying the man who died this year is someone else?" A long silence. Then Reeves said, "I'm saying he died twice." Mercer felt the air leave his lungs. Tada! The next few minutes of audio were chaotic. The interviewer asked rapid questions. Dates, locations, names. Each time, Reeves answered with precise detail. But the timelines never matched official records. In Reeves's version, several victims had died years before they were actually reported missing, as if events were repeating, or overlapping, or moving in the wrong direction. Then It's03 said something that made Mercer's hand tremble. "It's not just memories," Reeves whispered. "What do you mean?" the interviewer asked. "I see the people who aren't there anymore." A pause. "They're still walking around." The interviewer tried to ground him. "Michael, are you hallucinating?" "No." Another pause. "They don't know they're dead yet." Huh. Mercer stopped writing. For the first time since the tape began, he felt something deeper than curiosity, fear. The recording continued. The interviewer's voice now had an edge of urgency. "Michael, if these events are repeating, why are you here tonight?" Reeves answered without hesitation. "Because this is the point where it changes." "What changes?" A long silence. Then Reeves said, "In the last version, I didn't come here." Mercer stared at the recorder. The interviewer asked carefully, "What happened instead?" Reeves took a shaky breath. "I tried to stop it myself. And I failed." A pause. "More people died." There was movement in the room. A door opening somewhere in the background. Voices, faint and distant. The interviewer spoke quickly. "Michael, who is doing this?" For the first time in the entire recording, Reeves sounded terrified. "I don't know his name. Describe him." Silence. Then, "He looks like me." The tape went quiet except for breathing. Then Reeves spoke again. "But older." Another pause. "And he knows what I'm going to do before I do it." Mercer leaned back slowly. If this was a psychological breakdown, it was severe. But the problem was the details, the predictions, the confirmed locations, the recovered body. Someone had believed this tape enough to classify it at the highest level, and someone had erased it. At 03:41 a.m., the recording shifted again. A new voice entered the room, not the interviewer. Authoritative, controlled, federal. "Turn off the recorder," the new voice said. The interviewer responded immediately. "Sir, he's providing predictive information tied to active cases." I said, "Turn it off." There was a pause, then the sound of a hand hitting the machine. The audio distorted, but the tape didn't stop. "Hudda." Reeves spoke urgently now. "You can't shut this down," he said. "It doesn't stop just because you stop recording." The new voice asked, "How many events have you seen?" Reeves hesitated. 32. "How many have already happened?" 27. A long silence. The new voice asked quietly, "How many are left?" Reeves answered, 5. Hada. Mercer's heart began to pound. 5 events. If the supplemental note was correct, activity did not cease. The final minutes of the recording were chaotic, multiple voices, orders being given, the interviewer protesting, Reeves repeating something over and over, "You're making the same mistake." Then, suddenly, everything went silent. For nearly 10 seconds, there was nothing but tape hiss. Then one last sound, Reeves speaking softly, very close to the microphone. "If you're hearing this later, it means they didn't listen." A pause. "And if they didn't listen," another pause. Then the last one already happened. The tape clicked and ended. Mercer didn't move. He checked the timestamp, 03:47:11. That entire section, nearly 30 minutes, had never been included in any official document, which meant one thing. Someone hadn't just buried the tape. They had edited history. Mercer opened the case file again. 4 confirmed victims. If Reeves had seen 32 events, then 28 were still unaccounted for. Or worse, they had happened, and no one had connected them. His office phone rang again. Mercer stared at it for several seconds before answering. Mercer. The same calm voice from before. "You heard it," the caller said. "Yes." A pause. Then the voice asked, "Did he tell you how many were left?" Mercer swallowed. "He said 5. Silence. Then the caller spoke quietly. That was 10 years ago. Mercer's chest tightened. "How many now?" he asked. The voice answered, "One." The line went dead. At that exact moment, Mercer's computer screen flickered. A new file opened automatically. No sender, no timestamp, just a single incident report. Missing person, filed today. Name, Daniel Mercer. Last seen, FBI headquarters. Time, 2014 a.m. Daniel Mercer stared at the screen, and for a moment his mind refused to process what he was seeing. Missing person. Daniel Mercer, last seen. FBI headquarters, time, 2014 a.m. The same time Michael Reeves had begun his confession. The same time stamped on the cassette. The same time the events always seemed to begin. Mercer checked the clock on his wall. 11:58 p.m. He was still here, still breathing, still very much not missing. But the report wasn't a glitch. It was formatted correctly, logged into the internal system, filed under an active case number, authorized by a department he didn't recognize. And at the bottom of the report, in a field normally reserved for case notes, was a single line. Event 32, pending. For the first time since the envelope had appeared on his desk, Mercer felt something deeper than fear. He felt the shape of a pattern closing around him. 32 events. Michael Reeves had said he'd seen 32. 27 had already happened when the tape was recorded. 5 were left. The anonymous caller had told him that was 10 years ago. Now only one remained. Event 32, him. Mercer didn't waste time going through channels. If someone inside the system had buried the tape once, they could bury him just as easily. He printed the report. Then he opened every case file connected to the Reeves transcript. Every victim, every location, every date. He built a timeline, and slowly, something impossible began to take shape. The murders weren't random. They weren't even escalating. They were moving. Geographically. Each event was closer to one location than the last. Closer to Quantico. Closer to the Bureau. Closer to him. At 12:21 a.m., Mercer's office lights flickered. Just once. He looked up. The hallway outside was empty. He told himself it was the building's old wiring, but when he looked back at his computer, the missing person report was gone, replaced by a video file. No file name, no timestamp, just a single still frame. Security camera footage. Inside FBI headquarters. The angle showed a hallway Mercer recognized immediately. His floor. Outside his office. He pressed play. The timestamp in the corner read 02:2:48 a.m. The hallway was empty. The camera's black and white image flickered slightly. At 02:42:142, Mercer appeared in the frame, walking slowly toward his office. But Mercer wasn't watching a recording of himself from earlier. He was watching himself in clothes he wasn't wearing, moving differently, slower, more rigid. The figure stopped outside the office door and stood there for nearly 30 seconds. Then, very slowly, it turned its head and looked directly into the camera. Mercer felt his stomach drop because the face on the screen was his, but older. The eyes were hollow, the skin pale, and there was something else, a calmness, the same calmness Michael Reeves had described. The video ended. Mercer sat frozen. Reeves hadn't been seeing random events. He'd been seeing repetitions, versions, different passes through the same timeline. And in one of those passes, Mercer didn't stop this. Theta. His phone rang again. He answered immediately. "Who is this?" he demanded. The voice was the same calm one. "You're running out of time. Who are you?" A pause. Then the voice said, "You already know." The line clicked. Mercer's office computer came back to life. Another file opened. Audio. The timestamp read 02:14:07, the beginning of Reeves's confession. But this wasn't the original tape. The voice speaking wasn't Michael Reeves. It was Daniel Mercer. Mercer listened as his own voice came through the speakers. Calm, controlled, almost relieved. "My name is Daniel Mercer," the recording said. "I'm here to report Event 32. Mercer shut the audio off. His hands were shaking now. This wasn't a threat. This wasn't a warning. This was a loop, and he was inside it. At 12:47 a.m., Mercer did the only thing left. He went back to the beginning. Michael Reeves, the accident. Thomas Hale, the construction collapse. One man reported dead. But what if that wasn't the real starting point? Mercer pulled the original incident records. The collapse had happened 10 years earlier. One fatality. Body recovered. Case closed. But when Mercer opened the medical examiner's report, something stood out. Time of death, 2014 a.m. Mercer leaned back slowly. Every event, every recording, every disappearance. 2014. That wasn't when the loop began. That was when it reset. At 1:32 a.m., Mercer left his office. The building felt different now. Too quiet, too empty, as if the timeline were already narrowing toward the moment. He reached the evidence room. The cassette recorder sat exactly where he'd left it. He pressed play. The tape hissed. Then, something new, a section that hadn't been there before. Michael Reeves's voice. Weak, exhausted. "I figured it out," Reeves said. "It's not prediction." A pause. "It's inheritance." Mercer's breath caught. The interviewer asked, "What do you mean?" Reeves answered, "It moves to the person who tries to stop it." The tape clicked. Mercer turned it off slowly. Reeves had come forward to stop the events. Then Reeves disappeared. Then the events continued. Now Mercer had taken the case. Now Mercer was Event 32, Tata. At 1:58 a.m., Mercer referred to his office. He sat down, opened a blank report. If Reeves had been right, then the only way to break the loop was to change what happened at 2014. He began typing. A full confession. Every event, every discovery, every detail about the loop. He attached the video, the audio, the files. Then he scheduled the report to send automatically at 2:13 a.m. to multiple external agencies, state police, media contacts, federal oversight. If the information went public before the reset, maybe the loop wouldn't hold. At 2:10 a.m., the lights went out. The entire floor went dark. Emergency lighting flickered on. Mercer stood slowly. The hallway outside his office was no longer empty. Someone was standing there. The figure stepped into the light. Mercer felt the world tilt, because the man in the hallway was him, older, paler, the same hollow eyes from the security footage. The older Mercer spoke calmly. "You're doing exactly what I did." The younger Mercer's voice shook. "Does it work?" The older version smiled faintly. "If it worked, I wouldn't be here." The clock on the wall read 2:13:42. "You don't have to do this," the younger Mercer said. The older Mercer stepped closer. "Yes," he said quietly, "I do." "Why?" A long pause. Then the answer. "Because the loop doesn't need a killer." Another step. "It just needs a witness." The clock hit 2014 a.m. Everything went silent. The lights went out completely. For a moment, there was nothing. No sound. No movement. Then the office lights flickered back on. The hallway was empty. Hector! On Mercer's desk sat a manila envelope. No sender, no routing slip. Just one line typed on the front. Case E-view required. Archival material inside was a thin folder and a cassette tape. The label read, "Confession, May 17 recorded, 2014 a.m. Mercer opened the file. The first page listed a suspect. Name, Michael Reeves, but someone had added a new entry below it. In blue ink, previous holder, Daniel Mercer. And at the bottom of the page, Event 33, pending, ha ha ha. Far away, in another office, another agent would soon arrive for work. They would find the envelope. They would open the file. They would press play. And the voice they would hear first would not be Michael Reeves. It would be Daniel Mercer, calm, controlled, almost relieved. "My name is Daniel Mercer," the recording would begin. This isn't a confession, a pause. It's a warning.